Hello, readers and digital people, and welcome back to the Flatcap Recap. I am your host, Grant Reeds.
And I'm your co-host, Friendly.
And today we are talking about the hit streaming series, The Book of Boba. So far, it's been a really good show. I've really enjoyed seeing what happened in Star Wars after Return of the Jedi, and, on the planet of Tatooine. But something that's really irked me is they spent a lot of time kind of establishing Boba coming out of the pit and, the prequel part of it. And then once the actual story got started, we're seeing these gang wars basically between the Hutts and that mayor character and these the Spice Runners, all these different groups trying to take over the system. And then as soon as the story actually gets started, they throw us off into basically Mando season 2. So that kind of scares me because now I feel like they don't really trust the show as something that could run on its own. I feel like they feel like they have to leech off of the Mandalorian and off of Grogu to make the series sell. And when someone is not confident in a product, it's hard to be confident in the product yourself.
That's fair. And I can certainly see that perspective on it. As you said, the first 4 episodes are very much Boba. This is Boba and what he's been doing in everything since you said Return of the Jedi. Escaping the Sarlacc pit, his time with the Tusken Raiders, and to some extent, small interactions with different Mandalorian groups and such. And I appreciate how, on a surface level, it's very easy to look at this and go, what the heck? Why are we suddenly getting, Mando season 2?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people are forgetting the key element that this is all already recorded. They're not still recording. They're done. It's all produced. It's all ready to go. And it has been for some time.
My question would be then, did they have 2 different timelines of content finished before they uploaded? Let's say they had Boba episode 1, 2, and 3, and then they had 4A and 4B, 5A and 5B, and based on the ratings, they tested that 4B with the Mandalorian side of things and saw that it did better, so now they're going with the 5B and continuing with maybe a side series that was built as an alternate version of how the episodes progressed. Do you think it's something like that?
So I'll just say what I think it is, because it's not entirely a no, but it's also not entirely a yes. I think people are ignoring the details of what we learned from Mando and that information we received that can relate back to Boba. And a huge thing, and I can't take credit for pointing this out. The Star Wars theorist pointed this out. Cad Bane was a very interesting scene. He walked up to the guy and was talking to him and told him, "You should have never given up your armor." How would he know that he'd given up his armor?
That's a good point.
And unless he had seen Boba in that armor. We know Boba had not seen Cad Bane directly himself, leading to a strong potential that Cad Bane wiped out Boba Fett's Tusken Raider family.
It's not so much they're telling 2 separate stories, it's almost that they're doing a 2-sided story and showing how things going on with the Mando will connect with things from Boba, maybe? Leading up to maybe a fight with them together.
Well,
Possibly.
I think it's a parallel story that is going to, I think, in a more significant way, later branch into further, more personal aspects for each character individually. I think we're going to see very, very particularly with The Mandalorian itself as a show, I think we're going to see that split off into the reformation of Mandalore as a planet. They've been the steps for there to be a new leader of Mandalore to be followed and taken by Mando. And then we're seeing on the other side of that Boba Fett and not only the reformation of the Empire after its defeat, but also what happened in terms of just the power struggle that went on in the Outer Rims for a good 20 years after The Last Jedi. And I think you'll end up seeing very much, it's 2 sides of the same coin.
Okay, here's a question, because they did not show Tatooine in any of the new trilogy movies. So Tatooine's kind of this mystery. What happened to Tatooine after Return of the Jedi? Does Tatooine become New Mandalore?
No.
You don't think so?
No, I mean the planet Mandalore itself was bombed back into the Stone Age, but it wasn't made uninhabitable. And as I'm aware, it was already a pretty inhospitable planet to begin with. I could be wrong on that,
No, that's
but
why they wore the
yeah.
suits. You're right.
So I suspect that it would be more an issue of needing a sufficient population to reclaim it
Mm-hmm.
and you know a sufficient population of people that are willing to recognize him as their true leader.
Okay.
Tatooine is an interesting one. It's a very strategic planet. That's one of the reasons why, there's all these smugglers and stuff out there. It accesses a whole lot of regions of the Outer Rim. So I don't think that anybody would ever let anybody be like, we control this fully. It's kind of a galactic hub, if you will.
It's just I'm trying to figure out why they would make the reclamation of Mandalore, which is where I see the Mandalorian going in the next season. Why would they make this the focal point of that? Why would they? I can understand tying Mando into the Boba Fett story, but why go so deep into Mandalorian story unless Tatooine's going to play a paramount point in the reclamation of Mandalore or the new Mandalorian society? Why the focus now? Is it just for the views? Or is there something a little bit more deep and serious as far as the connection between what's going on in Boba Fett versus what's going to happen in The Mandalorian?
That's a really good question.
Because I really don't want another situation that's basically Doctor Strange and Marvel. I hope Disney's not getting in the habit of that, using a character just to bridge other story elements without actually really giving them much development, just using them because they're popular. Because Doctor Strange, the reason he's only had one movie but been in basically every movie is because he's very popular. And I hate when they use a character as a transitionary character. I hope they don't have the Mando just be a transitionary character in all their Disney Plus series going forward because he's popular. Because Grogu's popular. That's what I'm afraid of.
Mm.
Because I could see them
See,
having. I mean, how old is Grogu? 50?
yeah,
So Grogu could be in the Obi-Wan show. He could be. They could put Grogu in there easily. They could. Remember, he was in a temple in the last episode. It showed Grogu in the temple, and it's Order 66, and he's seeing his comrades being murdered. What if Obi-Wan is there for that, or talking about that? What if the show starts there, and Obi-Wan is there at that time, and they use Grogu as this bridging character because he's popular?
so we know that can't be the case for the simple fact of in episode 3, we see Obi-Wan take Luke to Tatooine. So Obi-Wan actually spent the entirety of the rest of his life on Tatooine protecting Luke. Yeah, honestly, he was a genuine badass. He did a lot. And he did more than just protect Luke, but Tatooine was Obi-Wan's home for a very long time. And when Order 66 went through, he took Luke to Tatooine, gave him to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, and then lived nearby. And on occasion, he did stuff to protect them. He actually so remember the episode in Boba with the guys raiding the water fountain?
Mm-hmm.
So those guys were Jabba's thugs. And Jabba demanded a water tax from all of the local moisture farms. Uncle Owen never had to pay it because Obi-Wan is like, I will kill anybody that goes near these people.
So he stayed as the assurance for the protection. Okay, but
Yeah.
still, I could still see it connecting somehow because I could see maybe someone who visits Obi-Wan on Tatooine, tells him kind of what's going on in the universe, or maybe like Ahsoka even. One of them could either, after Order 66, tell them about Grogu is safe, or they could even have Grogu traveling through because we don't see what happened to Grogu before he becomes the target for the Mandalorian. So, I mean, they could still connect it. I just hope they don't, honestly.
Really?
He doesn't need to be in every Star Wars series going forward. I mean, that's cool if you want to make him the Star Wars miniseries character, but it just feels cheap, you know? I want him to have his important place in the series he plays in and not just there for popularity's sake.
Fair. Okay, so here's a question. Is it a possibility for him to be both significant unto himself and in more than one or two shows?
Yes, but I feel like if they did that, it would need to be more than, oh, hey, he went through here at this point, so we're going to show him and make him cutes to sell more toys. I feel like it needs to be more so, this is why they wanted him here. This is actually why he was here. Maybe he played a part in perfecting the clone of Palpatine. Maybe they needed more metachlorian DNA to make the Snoke copies. I mean, if it played into the actual story and lore and actually added something, I'm absolutely fine with that. But if they just have him there for the sake of having him there, they have devalued him to the point where he's just an icon. And I don't want that for him because he is an interesting character. And I would love to see how he goes forward. I would love to see maybe a mini series about Grogu in the future when he's older, after his training with Luke. I would love to see that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I do feel like it is unfortunate that they have two such strong characters in Mando. It does almost relegate him to being the bodyguard in the Grogu show.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A lot of the show felt like that.
I think these two episodes in particular, I am hoping are going to be vastly dissimilar to what we see for the rest of the things. I think they're establishing their format of how they're going to tell a unified story versus unifying stories to have a format.
Yeah. This is the only reason I have a problem with them intertwining the two is that Boba felt so different. It felt like a spaghetti. Well, let's go to Mandalorian first. The Mandalorian felt like a Mandalorian spaghetti western bounty hunter. I mean, it was almost like seeing how young Boba or young Jango would have went through their lives, but then it ties in new elements and it ties in Grogu. So it had a really interesting new edge to it. And then Boba went almost into like this gangster Tatooine story, this back alley, almost not really drug deals, but the back alley, under the table, the Jabba the Hutt side of the story, which we never really got to see, but we're seeing it from Boba's perspective. So that was a really interesting angle as well. But they were so different as far as the feel of the shows. I'm afraid that something's going to be lost once they mix the two together because, in my opinion, they were in the same series, but they were very, very different genres.
I I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily agree with that statement as far as being two different genres. I
I'm seeing like
think
spaghetti western and turf war is basically what I'm seeing. I mean, I may be wrong, but that's just what they felt like, and I like the fact that they felt different.
I do appreciate it doesn't feel like it's just one show. They do have their own feel. I think we're going to maybe see less of that going forward, honestly. I think what we've been getting with Boba has been very much seeing him at his worst. Because if we walked in and Boba just instantly blew everything to pieces, everybody would forget about Mando, and we would very quickly forget about him. You keep hearing, Beta Fett, and I think people are forgetting we've been seeing him at like 50% at best. He keeps getting ripped out of his back to tank and beat to shit.
Speaking of which, that I can never remember his name, but that Wookiee should have killed him with that hug.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Any one of those moves
That's a super
should
Bacta
have
tank.
killed him. Yeah, I mean, he's like was one of the greatest gladiators in the freaking galaxy. That scene would just the biker gang would not take him down. He would literally eat them.
Well, I mean, you could argue that maybe he was weakened. Maybe we'll see a little bit more behind that. Maybe he was weakened by something. Maybe he had his bones broken and refused so many times that things don't quite work well on him anymore. Maybe his strength is weakened. Or maybe we'll see explained later, since Boba knew about the enhancements. What if Boba enhanced himself and we just haven't seen it yet because he got skin put over it? I doubt that, but, I hope they explain it and don't just say, well, it's a thing that happened, because that's already happened once. I'm still mad about how he escaped the Sarlacc pit. Why didn't he come out of the pit? Why did he burrow through the sand? How does that make more sense than him coming out of the pit? It was so weird. The sand would come back onto him and keep knocking him down. That's not how sand works. You can't just climb up through sand.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but now that you pointed out, it is a little
I don't understand
excuse
that
me.
choice. I don't understand the artistic choice of making him climb up through sinking sand instead of just climbing out of the monster.
It may have something to do with the comics.
Yeah, because Disney follows the comics.
Disney, no. The people that have been writing these recent shows have
True.
been on point and very respectful, in my opinion. So It may have just been something along those lines. Like, there's a particular panel, and they're like, "This is an iconic panel. We need people to have this picture in mind."
I suppose. And, honestly, since he was using the flamethrower to escape, I mean, he could have had some kind of situation where he would build steps for himself by melting the sand into glass and just stepping upward. So that could have been how it happened, but they didn't show that. But I mean, just the fact if he just somehow climbed straight up through sand, I need the
Well, I
explanation with
mean,
the science behind that.
well, he was inside the Sarlacc itself. He got eaten.
Oh, so you're saying that the skin was just close to the surface, and that's why we saw that?
It's possible that he got shunted to a part of his stomach that was, or tentacle, or he, instead of burrowing through the ground itself, he burrowed through a part of the Sarlacc.
Okay, that would make sense.
I
But
think that would probably make more sense than he just like dug through sand.
dug through like 40 feet upward of sand, just did it. Now, there is some aspects of the show that was really, really, really well done. Absolutely love, and one of that was him with the Sand People. I loved seeing their culture, actually getting a look into the way they live their life because we've never really seen that in the visual, like the movie mediums and things.
They did such a good job with that. The forming of his gaffy stick and all of it was just wow. That was fantastic to see.
And I'm not trying to be insensitive or anything, but the last time we heard about the Sand People, Anakin was calling them animals. So, giving them that human aspect and showing that they're actually a species that have intelligence and ways of life and beautiful rituals and things was really, really nice because we finally humanized what was considered an animal before. Good job, Anakin.
Yeah,
Anakin was awful. I'm sorry. I don't care if he was a Jedi. He was just awful from the beginning.
Hayden did a fantastic job of capturing just that character because it wasn't that he was necessarily awful, but he grew up under such awful circumstances that his metric of what was reasonable and what wasn't was so skewed that once he had power, he just
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, I have this power, and these people did something wrong to me. Now you die."
I mean, think about his role models. He saw the Hutts do that, so why not do that himself? He saw the Hutts say, well, these people are basically just animals. Let's go ahead and kill them all. He'd seen that done his entire childhood, so having that as a backbone for his beliefs, I mean, that does make sense.
And I think it just points to what Yoda was saying. Too much fear, too much anger, too much hurt. That is just. It doesn't mean that one can't be redeemed from having, tons of pain and hurt and bad experiences, but trying to heal that while giving them power is just a recipe for, I mean, a Sith.
Yeah, it's not that he was irredeemable, but he was like standing on the edge. He was too close to the edge to be in a position of power because anything could have pushed him over. And I mean, it didn't take a whole lot for him to be pushed over the edge. It's so funny to see that transition because he was this top Jedi, super kind, and then a few bad things happened, and it was like 180, boom, he's bad.
Yeah, it's interesting that we look at them, a couple of bad things, but they're simple human experiences at the end of the day, not to
Hmm.
take away from anybody's hurt or anything, but the experience the loss of a loved one and being dumped.
Yeah.
And something I haven't really considered about that before, that it wasn't even that they were bad things, but they weren't things that other people couldn't overcome emotionally.
He
And he
was,
was just default, let me go kill everyone.
yeah, like I was saying, he
I,
was he was
I,
very close to the edge from the get go, and that's why it's not Yoda was saying that he was a bad person because he'd been through these things. He's just saying that with that as his background and his emotional state right now, he's just a couple steps away from becoming a Sith. So we really should not be showing him how to do it.
yeah, pretty much. I am curious to see where they take Boba. So, like watching Mando, I think it's pretty clear. Like, he has a series of events that's happened to him in a pretty clear, I guess, destiny, for lack of a better word. He's going to Mandalore. He has a dark saber. He's been with a foundling. He's going back home to be literally purified. you can see where that story is going, and I don't know where you go with Boba, where it's almost like he's already at the end of Mando's story,
Basically, I
if
mean,
that makes
it
sense.
does, yeah. Because the part that would connect him to Mando, the only other thing I could see connecting between the two is that Mando is going to help him fight in his battle, and then in return, Boba helps him fight in his reclamation of Mandalore, perhaps. Show how that relationship formed to such a degree that they're willing to fight for a whole planet together, which means basically what he would help him do in Boba, so he returns the favor, and that shows why he was willing to step away from his kingdom in Tatooine to help the Mandalorian reclaim Mandalore.
It's potential, and I can certainly see him having a role in what Mando is doing. It's unfortunate to say this because I very much enjoy the show, but it almost feels like they're setting him up to be a springboard for Mando's future.
He's becoming the Doctor Strange of the Star Wars connected universe.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's what made these all so jarring. Is it feels like it went from one linear story to okay, and this is going to be the six other series that we have. There's going to be one where Luke goes out on his journey to become a Jedi Master. There's going to be one with Ahsoka Tano. There's going to be, you know,
See,
ooh,
yeah, now I would love a Ahsoka show, but my nightmare situation is that we get to Mando season 2, and it makes no sense unless you went back and watched like 12 other miniseries that had key elements that you needed to have, and they're just going to use that to sell the rest of the Star Wars series instead of actually producing stories that are just so good on their own that you want them. Now, I mean,
oh
everything they've done so far has
no.
been awesome, so I hope they don't slip into that. But with the Disney label being over them and that being a tactic they use often, they may not be given 100% choice. They don't have 100% creative freedom. They have a lot of it, but Disney still gets the final say. So I would hate to see that happen for Disney to try to use that as a merchandising tactic.
Oof, I really hope not. I so hope not. That would be nightmare scenario. I guess my fingers are currently crossed that what we're going to see is this is a thing that they do semi regularly. Like once a season they have I guess a crossover if you will
Mm-hmm.
that shows other aspects of what's ongoing. And instead of using it as a plot device,
Yeah,
they use it as a development device.
right. Use it as a placeholder for where we're at in the timeline versus just something for the sake of it being popular.
Yeah, exactly. Because I can accept that as a format. And honestly, if you do too much with Boba, you destroy him as a character.
Yeah, you do.
The whole thing about him is that he is mysterious. He is a quiet man who, generally speaking, shoots first, asks questions later, or never. It was put very well by Vader at the beginning. No disintegrations.
Yeah,
It's it has to be stated clearly with him. No disintegrations. I want them alive. Because he's not one for leniency. He doesn't talk much and he doesn't need to talk much. And I'm thankful for the actor that they have playing him. Very much for the reason that even they've tried having him speak, I guess, paragraphs more. And a lot of what Fennec, a lot of her lines are things that the producers originally wanted him to say. And he was like, I can't talk this much.
yeah, he gets it. I love that.
Right? That alone makes me assured that he will never go quite full ass backwards, but it is concerning that they're going to, like you said, merchandise him.
Well, after The
Please
Last
don't.
Jedi and how Solo performed, I mean, the people that are involved with it are pretty much hardcore Star Wars fans from this point forward since they started Mandalorian, honestly. And they're really, really protecting the series. So I don't think they're going to allow it to do that, but I could just see Disney kind of forcing that in somewhat because They want to make more money off of a property they spent, what, $6 billion on? So I could really see it going either way. But seeing things like that makes me a little bit more comfortable because it shows that the actors even are protecting the series. But that's still just a fear of mine.
And until proven otherwise, it's a legitimate fear. Really, we know what they've done with Marvel. There are thousands of comics worth of other stuff they could have done, but they choose to keep rehashing the same 9 characters.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see Boba establish Tatooine as his domicile, have that running smoothly, go through that battle. And my concern is that once they go through that battle, a lot of people are going to be like, okay, it's over. Boba reigns now. And I would very much like to see, instead of them trying to expand on King Boba's reign of Tatooine, I would much, much, much rather see Boba go back to bounty hunting. But rather than bounty hunting for other people, he bounty hunts for his own personal reasons. His people have a problem, he goes and handles it. And whoever it is that's causing the issue, just, a couple of episodes, hunting them down, see how that affects things, and go from there in a more episodic way than necessarily try and turn it into some great long running thing. Because then it allows for that bookmark, and it allows for him to continue to be his enigmatic badass self and have some backstory in there. Run into other bounty hunters he's had experiences with in the
I like
past,
that.
rather than relegating him to really desk duty,
Yeah.
because that's not where he belongs.
No. I can agree with that, but personally, I'd like to see it run more this way. The Boba Fett series end with the war, him in his, as you said, in this office job. And everybody's like, is he really going to end up being stuck that way? Then take a break from it, go back to The Mandalorian. If they are going to connect the two, go ahead and show that he got back out there, and then use The Mandalorian, since The Mandalorian used Boba Fett as the send-off for its next series, have The Mandalorian set Boba Fett off for his series in return. And what I mean by that is he goes to the planet, he helped the Mandalorian get Return of Mandalore, and then maybe he runs into a group of bounty hunters he used to know that are using his name to do something, or they're planning on attacking Tatooine, he hears about it, and then use that for the second season of Boba. So now he's bounty hunting the bounty hunters to try to keep them from destroying the empire he established on Tatooine. Have it back and forth there. Every other series builds off of each other, at least for this particular point in time in the timeline.
Okay. In that vein, not quite the same, but I think you may have a potential really solid theory there if you simply take out old bounty hunters and replace it with Imperial remnants.
Oh, yes, that's perfect. That is a perfect send-off. Yes, I agree. And that's how oh my gosh, and that's how they connect the First Order and everything too. The beginnings of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, dude, that is perfect. You just found the perfect balance between the two. I love that so much. That needs to happen now. You listening, Disney?
Disney!
Yeah, that's great.
Hear us! And I am hopeful that that's how they're going to do it, because that whole little thing with the First Order in Mando being so heavy and they're back. It held a sense of significance in how he said it to him that I don't know many people have noticed, because it was under the context of this greater battle. But it was very clear to me in that moment that he was very concerned about there being any Imperial remnants. And I think we're going to end up seeing more an exploration of the First Order through the underground as displayed in Book of Boba.
And we absolutely need that, because right now, the First Order is kind of hollow with what we've got so far. But in conclusion, I guess the most important thing about Boba is that this show is so dynamic that it has the potential to be paramount in the Star Wars lore, in the Star Wars series, but it also has the potential to just be a stepping stone for what's coming. And especially with Mandalorian, with Grogu, he could be wasted. I guess it's really about taking the amazing assets that they've built with these Star Wars miniseries and actually utilizing them in a way where they have value instead of just using them as a piece of production material to sell products.
Yeah, really, if they can continue to develop characters, then as individual personalities and just refuse to cave into marketing stunts, they'll be fantastic. If they go the way of so many other series, that's just sad. But I don't think that will be the case here. I think there's enough people on it that care and actually understand the vision behind Star Wars that we don't need to worry about that too much.
Yeah, I have high hopes, and I hope that the people, and it seems like they're going to, especially with the actor of Boba defending it, defending the character. I just hope there's enough people to defend the series to keep the executives from ruining it.
Yeah, therein lies the struggle.
And with that, thank you all again for tuning in. This has been the Flatcap Recap. I am your host, Grant Reeds,
And I'm your co-host, Friendly.
and we'll see you next time.